Alrighty, welcome to the 167th edition of the MMA Circus here on BloodyElbow.com and live on YouTube. My name's Nick Baldwin. He is Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence, and back for the first time in only 7 days. He's right on the schedule. It's Andrew Lawrence. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. You're lucky to get so much of me. I'm a man in demand nowadays.
Yeah, Middle Easy got you wrapped up pretty good, doing the shoeies at UFC 225 live on the scene in Chicago.
For people who listen to the UFC, reach out to me to do a shoey. Shame on you. Shame on you, good people. To the people who did do a shoey with me, all 5 of them, you all were great people. There's only one real official shoey, though, in my opinion. Like I did one with an Australian person, and that felt most authentic to me.
It should. And just an FYI, you are cutting in and out, but I don't know if we can really do anything about that. So sorry to you listeners if Andrew does cut out a little bit. But yeah, so you did how many 5 shoeies you did in Chicago at the arena?
Yeah, which I consider a fair number. There was actually a 6th lost shoey, but
what happened to that?
Well, no video exists of the 6th lost shoey.
So you just did it for fun, not even for the camera?
Yeah, it was just one for the sport of
the game. Yeah, I mean, I guess you enjoyed 225. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. It was a great card.
I mean, a phenomenal card, right? We could start with the scoring of the main event, I guess. How did you score the fight before I tell you how I scored the fight?
I scored the fight a 47-47 draw. I gave Whitaker the first 2 rounds like everybody did. I gave Romero a 10-9 in the third. I gave Whitaker a 10-9 in the fourth. A 10-10 would have been acceptable, or a 10-9 for Romero because of the late flurry would have been acceptable. I think the only score you can go in the fifth is a 10-8 for Romero. So that is how I got to the 47-47 draw. 3 rounds to 2 for Whitaker, but 1 10-8 for the Soldier of God. How did you score it?
3 rounds to 2. Yoel Romero, the Soldier of God.
You gave him the 4th and then no 10-8, or also the 10-8?
No 10-8. I gave him the 4th.
Oh, no 10-8. I don't agree with that. The 4th I can understand, but I think you have to give a 10-8 to him in the 5th.
I almost, I agree with you. At the time, I think I just kind of, I was drunk, so I was just like 10-9, Yoel wins. So who gives a fuck, right?
Have you rewatched the fight? I assume not, because then that would cost $70 or whatever on pay-per-view.
Yeah, we're waiting on that one to roll out on Fight Pass for sure.
Yeah, so I guess your scoring is drunk scoring. How valid is it? Probably not really.
I mean, right? At that point, we were 5 shoeies and a lot of cocktails deep.
Well, there you go. So you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you are a good drunk scorer.
I could
drunk
be.
Judge. Maybe you are.
Phenomenal seats, and the one thing about live scoring that you do have the advantage on, what shots mattered. Like a shot that lands really flush sounds different. A shot that like inflicts damage on a dude, you hear it and feel it almost more than anything else. And that's one thing that like a television audience is biased to. They're just like all shots kind of that land are scored the same, and that's just not how a fight works,
Yeah, it was a great fight though. I like this. After the 3rd round, which is probably the round of the year thus far, and it'll be pretty tough to beat. I mean, that was just a crazy round. After Romero not doing really anything the first 2, classic Romero, and then coming out 3rd round Romero, the greatest fighter of all time, the greatest mystical character. 3rd round Romero, he comes out, drops Whittaker multiple times in that 1 round. Whittaker comes back, lands a head kick. That was an insane round, and it was in that round that I realized this is the rematch I never knew I wanted. But I did want. I really did, because the first fight was fun. It was back and forth. Momentum shifts. Romero did well in the first 2 rounds. Whittaker stole the last 3 pretty clearly. It was a clear, but still not really decisive victory for Robert Whittaker in that one back in July of last year. But there was no huge moments. It was fun, back and forth, a lot, quite a bit of action. And it was fight of the night, but it wasn't a fight of the year candidate. This one really was. This one, I would like to see him fight 5 times. I really would. But honestly, like this, I wish Romero got the nod on this judges' scorecards only because then a trilogy would make sense. Now, does a trilogy make sense? It probably will down the line when Romero keeps beating guys up, unless he just all of a sudden turns 50, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But I want to see them go at it many, many more times.
Yeah, of course, you could see this being one of the most fantastic rivalries in middleweight history. At least I could. I would have loved to see that third fight. But it's almost disappointing that Romero doesn't get the nod on it because and Bobby Knuckles has a decent argument to be like, man, what the fuck? I gotta fight Yoel Romero again, consistently missing weight, and I beat him twice. What the fuck? Can I fight a new fighter? But imagine if you would. Robert Whittaker is out with a broken thumb. He's going to be out for a good little bit. Well, that heals. Yoel Romero fights in like something absurd, like 3 months, and knocks someone out like viciously, like maybe Chris Weidman. What if they make a Chris Weidman Yoel Romero rematch, and Weidman gets knocked out? Then who else is there to be a contender? Gastelum? I don't know. Or maybe he knocks out Gastelum. If Yoel Romero goes out and knocks out Gastelum next, and like Chris Weidman can't fight because he's broken, how do we not have the third fight?
No, I mean, again, as I said, unless Yoel Romero turns for real 41, I mean, he's 41 now, but he fights like he's 25. Say all of a sudden his next fight he looks old, which is possible because he took some damage. I mean, he's taken damage. He's been, well, I mean, whatever. I mean, it could happen. And unless that happens, this guy's going to keep winning because he's a very talented fighter and super explosive and just unorthodox and everything. He's going to keep winning. He is still arguably the best middleweight on the planet. Some people scored the fight for him on Saturday. And so how can you not get back to another title shot? As crazy as it might sound, because he's now 0-2 against Whittaker, both fights were so close that, yeah, a third fight could be warranted sooner than later. But Yoel Romero needs to make weight. That's something he hasn't been able to do since that first Whittaker fight. He's had 2 fights since then. Luke Rockhold knockout win. This loss to Whittaker now. What do you make of Yoel Romero missing weight again? Second consecutive title fight, he is ineligible to win the belt in because he weighed in at 186, got the extra 2 hours, which was apparently cut short. So it's tough to say what would happen, say, if this was in Nevada, but nonetheless, officially, he weighed in the second time at 185.2, ineligible to win the middleweight title. It wouldn't have mattered afterwards because the scorecards didn't go his way, but still unprofessional. What do you make of that? And does he or should he go to 205?
No. The only thing that this made me realize was that I don't give a fuck about weigh-ins, and I could give a shit less about people making weight. We need to just fucking end weight cutting. Essentially,
easier said than done, but I agree. Yeah. I mean, if you can remove weight cutting entirely, then perfect.
Essentially, Yoel Romero walks around as a true light heavyweight. Most of those 85ers do. They could all just be like just. I wish they would just do that. Just tell everyone, hey, there's no more weigh-ins, but like you can't be crazy overweight, or we're gonna kick you out of the division. I wish you could just be smart about this, but it sucks. Weigh-ins and all of that suck. It was 0.2 pounds. I don't know how they couldn't get off 0.2 pounds. I feel like you could scratch skin cells off you and get like, seriously. Like if they just like got a, one of those little like abrasive stones and just rubbed Yoel Romero's back, they could lose 0.2 pounds in skin cells.
Yeah, it does suck. Just because it just shows how big of an issue weight cutting is. I mean, especially in the same week that Dana White says that they're going away from the early weigh-ins, which is ridiculous. We talked about that last week. Yeah, it sucks because, Yoel Romero is a talented fighter, and to have 2 missed opportunities to win UFC belts in his last 2 fights, one of which he would have won the interim title against Rockhold in February, it just sucks. And yes, it's unprofessional, but at 0.2 pounds, it's just annoying more than anything. Yes, you have to be professional, and there has to be a limit for everything. You can't just say, oh, well, it's only 2.2 pounds. Well, then what happens when it's a pound or when it's 1.5 pounds? You have to cut it off somewhere. They do. It's 185 or bust, and it was bust for Yoel Romero, and it has been twice in a row now. I won't be opposed if he goes to 205. I think with age, for him, the weight cut is just getting tougher, and that makes a lot of sense. He is still having the benefits of being an athletic freak, but when you age in MMA, oftentimes you slow down in the cage, but also almost for sure your weight cut's going to get tougher. So we're seeing that now with Yoel Romero. And at 205, there are a ton of great matchups. Imagine him versus Alexander Gustafson, or if you throw him in there right away with Daniel Cormier. Daniel
I
Cormier
like the
versus,
Daniel Cormier fight
I
much.
do too. Daniel Cormier versus Yoel Romero is not a one-sided matchup whatsoever. I don't think
Wrestling
so.
history alone for it will make it a big fight, right?
Yes,
Yes.
Romero's fantastic of a wrestler. Cormier's of course, super
Both
high level.
Olympians,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a much more interesting fight to me than Gustafson. I just think a guy like Gustafson ends up being so long. That's a much bigger and taller person than Yoel. I don't know how Yoel hits him in the head, really. Not
I
without
think
just
he could
up
still
coming
do
in.
it. I mean, I would almost favor Romero in that fight, honestly,
Against Alexander Gustafson?
with the damage Gustafson has taken, and Romero rushes in very well without leaving his head out. Yeah, I mean, he could win that fight. I don't think that's a blowout for Gustafson at all, but only time will tell.
Time would tell.
On the other hand, I mean, it's just sort of getting back to the fight. I think this win does wonders for Whittaker's career. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, all of a sudden a star is born. I don't necessarily think so, because ultimately you have to be decent on the mic. It seems in 2018 to make some waves in the UFC. Robert Whittaker isn't much of a talker. That's fine. I don't care. The guy's a badass fighter. I don't think this is his the rise of Robert Whittaker per se, but I think that certainly, I mean, it won't do any damage to his career. It certainly has to help a little bit at least.
Yeah, of course, it helps a little bit. Being in great fights is still a commodity. It just doesn't get as wide an audience as someone like a Connor might get with some of the more blatant trash talking, or I don't know,
Whittaker needs to
theatrical
go throw a
elements.
dolly in at the Stipe Cormier
I mean,
fight,
I
and
don't even know. I don't think he has to. He just has to consistently fight and keep putting on entertaining fights. He could become a star in Australia, and it seems like Australia is almost ready to have this big moment of like taking over in the sport. There was a lot of Australian fighters on this card. It's really peaking over there, and that's a little late. But maybe there's a mainstream interest in Australia. That could be great for the company.
yeah, I mean,
A mini GSP. I mean, there's what like there's only like 10 million people in Australia. It's something really small like that.
but hey, it's still a big market. The UFC goes there a lot each year, so
Well,
having that Australian star is very important, and I think Robert Whittaker already is that. I think he is the face of
look at
Australian MMA at this point in time.
yeah.
I mean, you're cutting
I'm
out, so I'm
just
not sure if you're saying anything or not. But yeah, I mean, he's already their first UFC champion. So how can you not be their face of MMA in Australia? I mean, that he already is that. Now it just comes down to getting better, putting on good fights, and growing as that star. But I think at 26 years old or whatever he is, I mean, Robert Whittaker has a tremendous future, and it's not even just about becoming a mainstream star. Now that's of course ideal, but hey, he puts on great fights. Dana White likes great fights, and so he's going to pay him the big bucks just for it. He doesn't have to sell all these tickets, but even just for putting on a great classic like this one was, I mean, Dana White will be happy with that. So I think, I mean, you cannot be complaining right now if you're Robert Whittaker, other than maybe perhaps the injuries you sustained in the fight from getting knocked down 3 times by Yoel Romero.
Well, yeah, and that massive broken thumb. Yeah, so you're right. He's posed to really do and become perhaps a mainstream commodity in Australia as he sells the UFC to a much wider audience down there, which would be cool.
I do hope, real quick, I do hope that he comes back full form. I know this isn't really something I thought about after the fight, but I know, part-time MMA Circus co-host Jed Meshew tweeted out after the fight that he was hoping, hopefully Robert Whittaker comes back and it's all good. I mean, hopefully this isn't, I mean, sometimes fighters who don't take much damage all of a sudden take way more damage than usual and they never come back the same. Look at Anthony Pettis, RDA, Henan Brow, TJ Dillashaw 1. Those are 2 examples I go back to. I don't get the vibe that this was a similar fight, but hey, he did get knocked down way more than he's used to. So fingers crossed he comes back. Hopefully he's not, this doesn't affect his fighting career forever. I don't think it will, but I guess crazier things have happened.
Yeah, sure. That'd be an interesting fall from grace story.
It
That
would be a bummer too, because this guy could be the
that.
middleweight champion for a while. I mean, Romero almost took that away from him real quick, but if Romero can't beat him, then I'm not sure who can. And so I guess that sort of leads to this next part. Who does fight Whittaker next? I know I mean, I'm sure Yoel Romero would say yes to a trilogy. Robert Whittaker maybe not so much. It seems like it's really coming down to Kelvin Gastelum and Chris Weidman, the former middleweight champion. The problem here is that, well, A, Chris Weidman beat Kelvin Gastelum less than 12 months ago in July of last year.
Yep.
Since then, though, Gastelum's been on a roll, knocking out former champion Michael Bisping, and most recently defeating, longtime top contender Ronaldo Jacare Souza. Meanwhile, Weidman hasn't fought since then. He's been dealing with this thumb injury that's been, sort of coming back, and he hasn't been able to recover for the past 11 months. So we don't know when Weidman's going to be able to fight again, and he's just seems like he's always hurt, and nothing against him, but it just seems that's his bad luck. Do you want to see Whittaker Gastelum, even though Gastelum lost to Weidman? And rankings wise, I guess Weidman would technically make more sense. I feel like Gastelum Whittaker's the fight to make because Gastelum has the momentum. Plus, we don't know when Weidman can come back. So for me, that's the fight to make. Do you agree, or would you prefer the Weidman fight?
I prefer the Gastelum fight. I think it's great to see a title shot at this stage in the career and really use it as a catapult to to hit the second half of his career. He's kind of had this nice little path through beating up legends for the last little bit, and now we're expecting him basically to win a title in a weight class that he's coming up from. He probably shouldn't be in. He's fighting significantly larger dudes. It would be an amazing accomplishment for Kelvin Gastelum to beat Robert Whittaker at this point in his career. I just don't trust the Weidman fight, and I'm just not all that interested in Chris Weidman just because I can't, the momentum that he has is one victory over Kelvin Gastelum.
It's very limited, just ever since losing the title.
And it's been it's been this way for quite a while. So unfortunately, when I think exciting fight and who would I want to see and who gets my blood boiling, it's not Chris Weidman anymore. And it's definitely Gastelum for me.
And not even just momentum-wise, but stylistically, Whittaker Gastelum's better fight.
Yeah. We're talking about a guy who lost 3 fights in a row, right? Chris Weidman, right? Yeah. He lost to Gegard Mousasi, for Christ's sake. Well,
I mean, I don't know why you're saying that. Mousasi is a very good fighter.
Yeah, you're right. Mousasi is always going to be a dude who can out-intellectualize like a Chris Weidman. But do you favor Gegard Mousasi against Robert Whittaker?
No, but I think Mousasi has a case to be the 3rd best middleweight on the planet, right up there. I mean, would he beat Jacare tomorrow? Maybe. Would he beat Romero? Probably not, but Romero's number 2, almost number 1. So Mousasi's top 3, top 4. Weidman's just not quite there. I guess it's close, but I think Gastelum Mousasi would be a great fight. I mean, it kind of sucks that Mousasi's in Bellator. Like, I like seeing him there with the bells. It's cool, but there's so many matchups we missed. Rockhold Mousasi, Gastelum Mousasi, Whittaker Mousasi, even, the Weidman Mousasi rematch, because the first fight kind of ended weirdly. Yeah, I don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah, they just didn't let Mousasi fight the people we wanted them to.
Or even another Jacare fight, because that last one, I think, Jacare won by submission, but nowadays it'd be a lot different. So anyway, so we both want to see Whittaker Gastelum. I think that'd be a great fight stylistically. Whittaker, Gastelum, both stand-up guys. Gastelum maybe has a bit of wrestling, but Whittaker's takedown defense. It'd be very interesting to see how both young guys pair up against each other. Let's talk about the UFC 225 co-main event. Oh, MMA's most wanted man, Colby Chaos Covington, has won the UFC interim welterweight championship with a decision victory over Rafael dos Anjos, the former UFC lightweight champion. Andrew, what did you make of Covington's performance? How surprised are you that we are now calling him the UFC interim welterweight champion? And yeah, just talk about his win and what you thought.
Okay, I boycotted talking about of Colby Covington before it, but now that it's over, I'll end my stupid protest. Colby Covington winning this fight to me wasn't all that surprising. I actually thought he had a key, route to victory. Rafael dos Anjos has never really beat a great wrestler, and Colby Covington happens to be one of these relentless pressure wrestlers. So I see this working against RDA. But to call him champion when Tyron Woodley's ready and Tyron Woodley has a style that will likely eat him up and destroy him, I don't know. You have to beat Tyron Woodley right now to be considered the 170-pound champion for me.
Yeah, as far as the actual fight with RDA, I was quite surprised. When talking about this fight, I tried to leave any biases I have. I think, let's be honest. Now, as a journalist, I'm supposed to be completely objective, and so are every other MMA journalist that that covers the sport. But I think a lot of people do have biases when Colby Covington fights, or fights, I should say. Ever since calling Brazil a dump and Brazilians filthy animals and throwing a boomerang at Verdum and everything else that Colby Covington does, social media, attacking people, fighters, etc., etc., etc. But leaving that all of that aside, I knew Colby Covington had a chance to win this fight. I knew that, hey, if he gets inside, takes Rafael dos Anjos down, keeps him there, then yeah, he could win. But I didn't give him much of a shot. I was pretty surprised that he did so well against dos Anjos. But ultimately, this comes down to, hey, RDA just isn't that great off his back foot. When you pressure RDA for 5 rounds constantly, you probably can beat him. And Colby Covington, let's be honest, again, everything aside, he's a very talented fighter. He's a great fighter. His striking is coming along pretty nicely. It's still not great, but ultimately, it's good enough that he can get in your face. He pressures you. His cardio is good too. Going 5 rounds for the first time, I was impressed that he was able to go 5 rounds pretty easily. And then once he lands the takedowns, he's great. I didn't expect the sort of pressure we saw from Covington on Saturday. I know he's a pretty aggressive fighter, but I think that, I'd have to look back at previous performances, but that's the most aggression I've seen from Covington ever. And so I think his game's coming along very nicely, but against Tyron Woodley, just to sort of segue into that title unification bout that'll be coming up later this year, most likely, I still can't give him much of a shot, as you said, just because Tyron Woodley is a great defender of takedowns. And on the feet, Tyron Woodley will eat Colby Covington alive. Now, that's what I thought would happen against dos Anjos. I was wrong, but I can't see Covington getting on top of Woodley and getting in his face to the same degree that RDA did. Now, can Covington get in his face, and will that throw Woodley off a little bit? Sure. Can he make it interesting at the very least? Or I guess at the very most? Sure. But I don't think Colby Covington can beat Tyron Woodley. Still a fight I'm more intrigued by now, though, now that he beat RDA. Before the RDA fight, I would have been much more confident in Woodley. I still am, just not as much. I think Colby Covington did a great job on Saturday, and I'm quite impressed.
Yeah. As far as the fight performance goes, Colby Covington was impressive, and being able to do that to RDA should be noteworthy. Rafael dos Anjos is a dude who's beat up a who's who of guys in 2 weight classes, including some guys who we consider all-time greats. So, hats off to Colby Covington and his athletic accomplishment. I, of course, don't care if you want to consider him the welterweight champion of the world or not. Belts are an illusion. But I'm very now interested in seeing him fight Tyron Woodley. So congratulations. You made me kind of interested in you, Colby Covington.
There you go. Let's talk about the women's featherweight fight between Holly Holm and Megan Anderson. It was the first ever non-title UFC women's featherweight fight, as crazy as that sounds, considering the first women's featherweight fight was way back in February of 2017. You were there live in Brooklyn. That great card. With
unforgettable legendary card
with the many decisions that were so enjoyable. But
when we crowned Jermaine Durandamy,
yeah, also marking Jermaine Durandomy's last fight. Don't forget that. Okay, anyways, Holly Holm, Megan Anderson. Holly Holm wins by former UFC bantamweight champion, Preacher's daughter. Holly Holm wins by fairly one-sided decision over Megan Anderson, the former Invicta FC featherweight champion. Holly Holm is a natural bantamweight, if you ask most people, but she completely denied the fact that size matters in this fight and physicality in general. Megan Anderson obviously way bigger than Holm, even though Holm's a rather big bantamweight. But hey, Anderson apparently struggles to make featherweight at times, and so way bigger fighter. But Holm was, I think Holly Holm worked this game plan to a T. On the feet, she stayed back, but a lot of this fight was on the ground. She landed 4 takedowns in the fight, and she just put on a clinic against the completely outmatched Megan Anderson. And I think this was, I mean, this is the fighter that knocked out Ronda Rousey for the first time, but I think this was Holly Holm's most complete performance in the octagon to date.
Yeah, as like a mixed martial artist, I get where you're coming from. Holly just looked stronger and like, you know, bulkier
Which is
and
crazy.
more. Yep, you thought that Megan Anderson would do it. Megan didn't have like as mean a streak as Holly. That's what it came down to. You know, Holly Holm was a little pit bull in there, and when it came time to the grappling exchanges, she was just like, "I'm gonna press you up. Like that's what I'm gonna do." You know, and then you know, chain takedowns off that, and it was all just bully tactics. And then she's winning, you know, the stand up handedly, in my opinion. So, yeah, Holly Holm kind of shocked me here. I don't know why, but I kind of all the losses, the you know, um, I thought she would be too tentative and not throw enough volume, but she kind of made up for the lack of volume with all this new grappling that she showed. So, yeah, kind of a more complete package version of Holly Holm. So, am I interested to see her fight for the title? Nah.
Not even against Amanda Nunes, or are you talking about if it was against Cyborg again?
Um,
I think the Nunes home fight is really interesting, actually.
yeah, I mean, I'll see it because it's new. And what the hell else are we gonna do with Amanda Nunes? I want to see Nunes cyborg. That's the only reason I hesitate.
Yeah, my thing here, it kind of gets confusing because the bantamweight featherweight division are basically just the same division and they go back and forth. And so Cyborg's next opponent isn't really clear if it's not Nunes. But I just think, I mean, if I'm going for the best fights, it's Nunes Holm. I like that a lot. But then if you do Cyborg Holm 2, which really makes no sense considering we saw it in December, and I have no interest in that because it'll be the same fight. Then you could do Nunes versus what's the Caitlin Vieira, because then you sort of include Vieira in the title mix as well.
Okay.
We basically have 4 fighters because you can't go Caitlin Vieira versus Chris Cyborg. So I don't know how they're going to work it out because if they don't do Nunes Cyborg, then Cyborg doesn't really have an opponent. But I prefer Nunes Holm, if that makes any sense.
I think you just always make immediately Cyborg Nunes. Throw some money at these chicks. Let's see it. Come on.
I guess if you do Nunes Cyborg, then you could do Vieira versus Holm in a bantamweight #1 contender fight.
Sure, whatever. Who cares? Or give her a float fight. You know, throw someone in there who's already got an L but has a decent name.
All right, let's talk about Tai Tuivasa win. He put on a good show against Andre Arlovski. It was a really close fight. I think actually here, even with Arlovski coming off 2 straight wins over Stefan Struve and Junior Albini, this was one of Arlovski's better performances in a while.
Oh my God, yeah.
He looked good in the second round. I thought midway through the second round, if I was to bet $5 on this fight, I would have put it on Arlovski. I thought he was just going to keep going and beat the rising prospect in Tuivasa, but he didn't quite. Tuivasa just had a bit more damage in the third, which is ultimately the round it came down to. I scored it for Tuivasa. I saw a couple Arlovski scorecards, but the decision did go to the undefeated Australian. I thought it was a good decision. I thought it was a pretty fun fight, considering all 3 heavyweight bouts on this card went quite a while. I mean, past the first round for sure. I thought this was quite a bit of fun, and to put it on the main card, I thought it was a good promotion for the rising prospect in Tuivasa.
Yeah, exactly. Tuivasa seemed, you know, he's inspiring the shoey. He walked out to Titanic. I don't know how people across the globe aren't falling in love with him. I'm glad that he won the fight because God did it look like he was about to lose it. But you know, Andre looked good, and despite all the damage you've seen him take over the years, you watch him fight a fight like this, and you're like, "What? I guess you keep letting him fight, even though really deep down in your heart, you know that that's the most immoral thing in the world, and that he's taken way too much brain damage." But yeah, you know, Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa, you're the man. I only want to see you continue. I hope that you know, you figure out maybe some of these cardio issues, because that's gonna hurt. If you know, you can't be winded fighting RJ Arlovski if we're eventually gonna fight Stipe. But give him some time. This I think was also a good warning for Tai Tuivasa, like to slow down his rise, maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, because had he knocked out Andre Arlovski in the first round, we'd be talking a lot different. We'd be like, throw him in there against Junior Dos Santos
Yeah.
or something like that. But I saw MMA Junkie, they did their post-fight column, what's next for the winners, and they said still Tuivasa versus the winner of the Ivanov Dos Santos fight. But no, too soon. Tuivasa loses to Dos Santos most likely. So don't do that fight. Give him, a guy similar skill level, similar experience, maybe another veteran. Um, like a big
Sign
Nog if he was still
sign
around.
Jack May and just get knocked out by Jack or knock out Jack May. Well,
Hey, Jack May has PFL.
he's gonna win the PFL $1 million. He's got bigger fish to fry. I forgot.
Probably.
Yo,
Yeah,
Jack May
so
wins $1 million. I will always love MMA. I'm always gonna love MMA anyway, but I'll never. That would be the most legendary move of all MMA.
yeah, good on Tattoo Voss. Decent performance against the name guy, against the vet who was on a 2-fight winning streak anyways. So yeah, good performance from Tuivasa. Could have been better, but could have been worse as well. So kicking off the main card, we had the legendary welterweight bout between Mike Jackson and CM Punk. Mike Jackson, the 2-1 favorite here, getting the nod by decision. Dana White was not happy with the performance, thinking Mike Jackson should have finished, shouldn't have showboated, or allegedly showboated, just because Mike Jackson did deny any of that.
What's the showboating thing? I'm still trying to work out. What did he consider?
It seemed like when he was on top of CM Punk in his guard, he was like winding up his shots, and then he was looking away. I don't know. Like, to me, it did kind of look like it a little bit.
Oh,
But
because in the stance, it looked like he was looking at the clock to see how much time was left.
that could have been a possibility too. So I give Jackson the benefit of the doubt, but
and he really didn't have like enough to put him out. So he's like, "Oh God, I got okay. Let me hold this mount and hit him with some weak ground and pound."
it's tough to say. I talked to Mike Jackson on Sunday, the day after the fight, and he basically just said, "Hey, he wanted to finish CM Punk in the first round. Once that didn't really come true, and once he wasn't finishing him, let's just beat him up a little bit." And so I think he was satisfied.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what happened. He hit him with huge shots, tired himself out, and was like, "Man, I can't knock this dude unconscious." So he took him out and was just like, "All right, I'm going to catch my breath here," and kind of just like, smack this guy around and clearly show everyone, "Hey, I'm winning this fight." But like, I couldn't knock him out. It's hard to knock a person unconscious, man.
Now, it sounds like Mike Jackson will not fight in the UFC again. I understand that. Do you think he should get one more chance?
If he wants one more chance, and if it's a matchup that makes sense. I've heard him versus Artem Lobov floated around. God, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Dana White said that Lobov would kill this kid, Michael Jackson.
Well, I love Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson's my boy, but I tend to agree that Artem Lobov might not be the best matchup for him. Artem Lobov's like defeated professional fighters, has like multiple, like dozens of fights or a dozen fights on his record.
And Mike Jackson has defeated pro wrestlers, and that's sometimes just as good, is it not?
No, he can. If we have another like low level dude who wants to, like, this is my thing. What's his name? That other wrestler said that he wanted to fight Mike Jackson.
Brock
I would
Lesnar?
love for fucking, I don't know, one of these, Daniel Bryan, that's his name.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love Mike Jackson to fight professional wrestlers. That would be a dope gimmick for him.
That's a great idea. I was gonna say the thing. Say the same thing.
Yeah, he'll fuck those dudes up, and I think that would be awesome for MMA. To just be like, hey, the guy who takes photographs for our regional promotion fucks up your guys who are like millionaires.
It'll be real tough to find any guys that want to do that. I think CM Punk is one of a kind in that regard, but if they can, I'm all for it. Because Mike Jackson, I like the guy, but he's not beating most fighters in the UFC or any.
Yeah. Tell you what, if there's any UFC fighters who are chirping about taking a UFC fight, or any WWE fighters chirping to take a UFC fight, I'm going to be pushing for Mike Jackson to be his only opponent.
It makes sense, and they got to roll with it. On the feature prelim, one of the more high-profile bouts on the entire card, it was Alistair Overeem falling to rising heavyweight contender Curtis Razor Blades via third round ground and pound TKO. Vicious elbows from Curtis Blades is what sealed the deal for him, but ultimately it was the takedowns. I mean, he was able to get Overeem down multiple times throughout the contest, pretty much at will at times. On the feet, Overeem didn't show tons. I mean, the guy just runs a lot at this point in his career. He's changed up his game a lot, and that's understandable considering his chin issues. But great performance from Curtis Blades. This was a big win for him. I didn't actually think he would be able to get it done. I thought Overeem would just be too skilled on the feet, and I thought he'd be able to defend the takedowns too. But I was wrong. Curtis Blades got him down, beat him up, and sealed the deal. What do you think?
Yeah, Curtis Blades, a real impressive showcase. You gotta put him as a guy you're considering to fight the elite now. I mean, Alistair Overeem, where else do we go up from Alistair Overeem? You gotta kind of fight for the title next, probably. He needs maybe a floater fight in between there, but anyone he beats now, Curtis Blades has become the challenger for the heavyweight title. But maybe good reason. He didn't look all that bad. You thought of him as one-dimensional, and I don't think this fight really solved that question. Not completely, at least for me. But God, he looked good,
He did. I think as far as what is next for Curtis Blades, I'd be okay with a number one contender fight against Alexander Volkov. I'm not sure what you're doing, but anyways, Volkov I think should fight Blades. I think that's an option. That's a good fight. Volkov coming off the win over Verdun, Blades coming off the win over Overeem. Two guys that have been around for a long time, sort of the passing of the torch at heavyweight. Yeah, that's a fight that makes sense. Or if they just want to give Blades a title shot, I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
What else do we want to talk about? What else stood out to you on this UFC 225 card? We also had Claudia Gadelha win by split decision over former strawweight champion Carla Esparza. Mirsad Bektic picked up his biggest win of his career over featherweight veteran Ricardo Lamas. Anthony Smith quickly KO'd former light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans. Sergio Pettis picked up the biggest win of his career over former title challenger Joe Benavidez. Charles Oliveira choked out Clay Guida. Dan Ige made quick work of Mike Santiago in the opening fight. And dare I forget, Chris De La Rocha picked up his first UFC victory over Rashad Coulter. What else sort of stood out to you? What
Chris
the highlights
De La Rocha
of the prelims?
versus Rashad Coulter was the fight of the night before the main event. It was such a good fight live. It was an incredible heavyweight slobber knocker. Yeah, without a doubt, that was just unreal to watch live. Honestly, in a card that had like so many names and storylines, so many different things we were excited for. This fight, we were like, and who gives a fuck about it? And it was spectacular. Hats off to Chris De La Rocha. That was an awesome fight. It was
the one fight I didn't watch. I went to the grocery store.
No way! Are you fucking kidding me? It was a spectacular heavyweight fight. It was unbelievable.
I sense much sarcasm.
No sarcasm. This is zero sarcasm.
Seriously?
It was such a good back and forth battle, dude. It was really, really.
I got home, and just as he was winning, and my dad was like, "Yeah, you missed a crappy fight," and I was like,
"Did he say it?"
Figured so.
Live, it was incredible.
No bullshit. You're
nope.
not really.
I'm not bullshitting you.
Okay.
This is an 5 out of 5 star fight.
I still don't know if you're being sarcastic, but I'll take your word for it.
Good. Charles Oliveira beating Clay Guida like destroyed the crowd. Everyone was like genuinely sad.
Yeah, most Chicago natives on this card lost. It was only Curtis Blades who pulled through.
Yep, basically. Sergio Pettis, that's a great win for him. I hope they don't put him in the title shot next because he'll get destroyed. And Anthony
DJ
Smith,
versus Cejudo was just booked, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even next after
I think
that.
Pettis versus Formiga makes sense. Title eliminator fight.
Great. Why not? And then Anthony Smith just absolutely murdering Rashad Evans is just
retire Sugar Rashad. I mean, I like you. You're a good fighter.
He wrote a very like vague Instagram post, but essentially everyone smart's being like, "Yo, you're done, Rashad. It's fine."
Yeah, time to hang the gloves up. You had a great career, but everyone has to quit sometime.
And Bektic Lamas was also a very good fight.
It was fun. It was fun. Split decision shouldn't have been, but
fine.
The right guy got the win. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Anything else, or are we done?
We're all set, man.
All right. Well, with that, let's go watch Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. I've been watching for the past 15 minutes on my phone. First fight is underway. Thank you all for watching episode 167 of the MMA Circus. We really appreciate it. If you enjoy the show, give us a big thumbs up down there. Subscribe to the MMA Circus YouTube channel down there if you have not already. And any feedback for the show, good or bad, drop a message in the comment section down below, and I will reply to you if needed. Andrew, remind everybody where they can find you and anything else you got to plug.
At The Clown Kid, middleeasy.com for all the writings. Peace out, people.
You guys can find me on the Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. You can find all of my writing over at bloodyelbow.com. You can find all of my interviews here on this YouTube channel. Just subscribe, and that'll be fantastic. Thank you very much. Interviews with Curtis Blades and Darren Stewart up very soon. Posted my Mike Jackson interview Sunday night. 2 articles went up yesterday. Go check them out if you haven't already. I'll have stuff up on Bloody Elbow tomorrow as well. Just the usual news grind. That is the world of MMA. If you did not see, I got approved for credentials to UFC 226. I'll be covering that and the Ultimate Fighter 27 finale for Ireland Zone, Severe MMA. So very excited about that. Obviously, keep it locked to Severe for that. Looking forward to that. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. You can find the MMA Circus on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Google Play, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Player FM, Overcast, Podcast Addict, and pretty much anywhere else you can find a podcast. Subscribe, rate, review, anything else. Thank you all. For Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence, I'm Nick Baldwin, and we are out.
What up, Sherry?